Welcome to Exchange with Judit Petho. She loves challenges, whether it means winning a fencing competition at school, graduating from a top MBA, or trading in a corporate career for a startup. As a turnaround CEO, Judit is up to the task. Versatile, she writes lessons for leaders, mentors startups in tech, consumer, food and health, does martial arts, and prepares homemade curry for family and friends. And no, she does not wake up at 5 a.m. Judith prefers to figure things out as she goes. Here are some examples. Welcome, Judith. So tell me, how did it all happen? How did you change from the executive position in a corporate world to a startup? And why did you stay?
So I did fall into the startup world quite by accident when I took on the CEO role of a startup that needed turnaround. And I didn't really have any particular expectation when I got into this, but I had to adapt really, really quickly. A startup CEO's job is very different from an established company CEO's job, and you have to create so many things, and you have to raise funds at the same time as creating a new product and attracting great people to work with. Um, but there is such an exciting buzz that I'm being able to challenge conventional norms, create something new that people actually want, and then growing it into a business, creating jobs as well for everybody else. There's just so much excitement and buzz around it. And I think it's particularly interesting for professionals in their 40s and 50s because we live longer, we expect to live healthier lives. So for me, when I was 40 and I thought, okay, I still have at least 30 years where I want to work, which is longer than what I had before. So I have to start setting up the foundations for that now. And it doesn't have to be a big 180 change or a complete re-education. You can try new things. You can set up businesses, and a lot of professionals in their 40s and 50s are now doing that, and it's just so wonderful to see.
So tell me about your experience as a startup CEO and advisor.
The first and probably most important lesson I learned in startups, both from my own experience and from all the various startups I've mentored and advised and just watched, is choose your investors wisely, right? And because it's a process that goes both ways. People kind of assume that it's just the investors, especially the VCs, that choose you, but actually you have to choose them too. It has been described as like being in a marriage, choosing someone to spend the next decade of your life with is actually what happens when you have investors coming on board. When things are not going according to plan or they take longer, which they always do, a supportive shareholder is what you need the most. Someone who is both there to help you financially if you need bridging loans or more equity before you can actually go to market, but also someone who is well connected, who can introduce you to other people, who can help you, who can introduce you to ecosystems of clients or mentors, that sort of help. So you have to do your own due diligence on your investors. And you also have to, this gut feel when you meet people, do we share values? Are we going to be able to work well together or not? Because however way you look at it, you will be working with these people as well. You don't just take their money and then I'll see you when I can return your investment to you. So I think that's a much more important piece um, than people realize. And I also feel that often people don't feel empowered enough to also say no. And sometimes it's really hard to say no to a potential investor coming your way, you know, especially if things are not going really well. You might feel that the company will go under if you don't get funds very quickly. And you feel like, oh, I have to take this investment. But you always have to think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead as well. I've also recently had a mentee who again set up a great business. It's a tech company, and because for tech companies, you need quite a lot of funding at the beginning to build everything up before you can take it to the market. So he felt he needed to take on investment from this group of investors. And when he got to that stage that he was ready for VC funding, um, the cap table looked very difficult. The founders didn't have enough equity because the first round of angel investors invested in under terms that basically they took too much equity away from the founders. And that caused the problem for the next round because any VC, any good VC that wants to invest in your business want to make sure that the founders have enough incentives because it's a really grueling, really, really hard job. And you want to make sure that the founder feels that they own enough of the business that they will get a lot of the upside when the business reaches a stage that there is an exit event and so on. So if the founders at Series A and B are diluted out so that they don't even own, say, half the company, that's a problem. So that can actually jeopardize your future fundraising as well.
What about the product itself? Any tips on launching a new product?
In a big brand name established company, you can't really take these things to market until it's really perfect. It's really great, really high quality. When you're building a startup, perfectionism is the death of your company. You can't be a perfectionist, but you still have to create something good enough so that people will at least want to try it. In my own business that I'm building right now, um, the most mortifying thing was when I wrote my first long essay and I pushed the send button. And I was sending it to a group of about 50 business acquaintances, not friends, business acquaintances. So it wasn't people who were going to say that, oh, whatever you write, Judith, it's great, we love it. It was going to be people who, are very well established and they know what they like and what they don't like, and they receive thousands of newsletters and essays every day. And I sent it to them, and it was mortifying. And I felt like, okay, I can't send this. I need to work on this until it's absolutely perfect. But actually, I couldn't because it was never going to be perfect. What I needed to be, instead of being perfect, I needed it to be useful to the people who were receiving it. So if as I say, it was mortifying, but I sent it and then I waited for the feedback. And then I solicited the feedback. I talked to some of them. Yes, first I spoke to the ones that I knew were nice to me. They were not going to tell me that you're horrible. And the feedback was good, right? And then I also got different kind of feedback that some people wanted me to write more about this, others wanted me to write more about that. But this is where the work begins. So the work isn't really about making it perfect. The work is to make it the best for your particular audience. And that requires constant back and forth and constant iteration. And from what I've seen, a lot of startups actually fall on that. Either they create something that's just not good enough for a wider audience, or they try to create something that's too perfect and they are not ready to ship it. You look at something like this phenomenon of Clubhouse that became really big about 5, 6 months ago. Now, they went to market with a really good product, but their application only worked on the iPhone. They didn't even have an Android app, but they went out that way and then they iterated further. And that's true with a lot of products. So that would be one of my lessons learned and one of my advice is that create something that's really good, but don't wait until it's perfect. Just go out there, try it, and then constantly iterate on it and constantly make it better. And be okay with sometimes looking like you don't know what you're doing. It's just part of the process and it will be fine. when you're fundraising, or when you're hiring senior people, when you're hiring your board members, you're hiring the chairman, um, you have to show them where you're trying to take the business to. You have to show the investors that there is a market and you can build this business up in a certain way. So the whole idea of the planning that you're doing and the financial plan behind it is to show one way of creating this larger organization, to show one way of building this product up that um, will be able to reach a bigger chunk of the market, that will be able to become profitable at one point. But as I said before, because of the nature of the business, you know immediately, and investors will know immediately, that what is in your plan is not necessarily going to end up the same thing. And I know, for example, two startups in the UK who both deal with children's development and learning, and they both do it in completely different ways. But both of their solutions required children and these educators to be in the same place. So whether you're doing children's educational parties or helping them prepare for exams, there was this need for the connection between them. And then the pandemic hit, and all these plans we had for these businesses, the financial plans of how this can be um, taken to the next stage, all of that went out the window. So as you were trying to raise funds, none of that matters anymore. Investors as well want to understand that you will have to change quickly according to the circumstances, and you have to be okay with that. And this is quite similar as well when you're creating a new product and you fall in love with the product itself, as opposed to falling in love with the problem. If you fall in love with the problem that you're trying to address, for example, the fact that parents need to take care of their children's entertainment and educational needs and so on, then you're gonna try to find a solution to that you will be able to sell to the parents, whether that's going to be providing entertainment and crafts classes via Zoom so that they can deposit the children for an hour in front of Zoom and they know that the child is in good hands, is going to be your solution during the lockdown and the pandemic. And then once the lockdowns are over, you can go back to your original plan. And at the same time, because you have solved a problem for the parents, you created probably more goodwill with them as well, and you created more of a fan base. And that is especially true for services in the B2B sector. So when you're a business that services other businesses, um, a company is never going to be attached to one particular solution. They're going to try to find new ways, better ways of solving the problem. So maybe you created a great, let's say, accountancy system or a CRM system for a company. But if it doesn't serve their needs in a more complex way, and there are other people out there who can do it better, then they are going to go there. And if you see that, and you know that you have to change and you're happy to change your product, then you are back in the game. You can compete. But if you say that, oh, my customer or my client is stupid because they don't understand that this is the best CRM system ever, or this is the best leather jacket ever, then you're going to find problems, because guess what? The client or the customer is never stupid. Maybe you're too far ahead and they are not there yet, or maybe you are actually behind, they already find something else, or maybe they found a solution that just fits them better, or something that they are happier to pay for, they get better service, whatever it is. The client or customer is never stupid.
What would be your advice to somebody who is just starting own business?
The first most important thing, I think, is to learn, to seek out other startup founders, to learn from them, talk to them as much as you can. Um, join discussion groups if you can, attend events, follow them on Twitter, follow VCs and angels on Twitter. Try to get into the ecosystem and understand how it works. And then find that problem that you think you can help solve, even if you don't have domain expertise in it. If you are interested in it and you can find the right people to help you, that's great. But again, be open to learning. I think that's one of the most important things. And then another equally important thing is make sure you have the right support around you. It's going to be a tough journey if you decide to do it. So make sure that you're financially okay. So maybe you want to start your startup first just on the side to see if it works and still keep some sort of paying job if you have to support yourself. And also have friends and family around you who also pick you up when things don't go according to plan, because they usually won't. So sometimes you need someone who just says it's gonna be okay, or don't worry, you try something like. But definitely don't just throw your life away and start something new. Build it up, build up the knowledge, build up the financials, build up the emotional and other stability around you, so you can dedicate yourself to that particular problem. And most importantly, fall in love with the problem, not with the product that you first had an idea about.
Building your own business is a long journey. Fortunately, some common pitfalls are known and can be avoided. Thanks for sharing great tips, Judith.